of allegiance.
To the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to the agenda?
The only change is that our student representative will not be here tonight.
And so we will open it to public comments. And if we can post a policy online, public comments are open for Ringe and Jaffrey residents. Please state your name and where you live. At this time, we have none. We will have a second public comments section to this. So if you do have something to say, please make sure to take advantage of our second session. There is no student representative report today. We miss you, Julie. Superintendent's report, please.
All right. We were off last week. And so I think that was good. I personally got some things done, which was nice. We are entering that time of the year where the state is going to be getting closer and closer to preparing its budget. There are a lot of school-related elements to that. Millions of dollars proposed as of right now to be added for universal vouchers or freedom account. Money that is being removed or at least set to be removed from the university system. I think that's still, the conversations are still around 50 million, maybe 4 or 5 million from the community college area. Still yet to know where universal school choice is going to go, but I believe the language on that is if it is going to go forward, it wouldn't be implemented for a year out. But we'll take a look at that. And I don't think that's necessarily a budget matter, although they could put that into a budget. What was the question?
Yeah, I think it would be interesting in budget development. It would be an interesting challenge in budget development.
Oh, for us? Oh, enormous. Yeah.
Not knowing how many,
Enormously
yeah,
difficult.
Not knowing how
Yes.
many students are going to leave, come, go.
Yes.
I think, there may be some stability after a while, but I think that first year would be like a bit of a dart throw.
Yeah. So, if it were to pass, starting it right away would, I think that at least that wouldn't be on the docket, which would be good. But we have talked about this for years, saying that this is likely to come. That's been how the state has been heading for a while. The play will be this weekend, so Friday and Saturday. So Annie, the musical, there are individuals who are practicing as we speak, and we'll be practicing into the evening all week long to prepare for that. I believe there's a total of 3 shows, 1 on Friday evening and then 2 on Saturday. And then some of our 8th, about 30 to 40 of our 8th and some 9th graders are going to AHT tour. So the American Heritage Tour, which is a 4-day, 3-night event in Washington, DC. And so they are going to be meeting here at 3:00 a.m. tomorrow, so that they can leave at that point in time. So that's fun. And I think I'll leave it at that for now. A lot of sporting events.
All right, next up is an Abbey Group presentation. Welcome, you guys.
Who's the best person standing up?
Yeah, we're going to hand you a microphone.
And your microphone. Just
Hello, I'm Wanda Kirker. I'm the Nutritional Food Service Director for the Abbey Group in your school district. Slide. So at the Abbey Group, we're always looking to work. Should put this up here, right? Always looking to work together, ensuring that learners have a healthy, delicious meal that'll fuel their mind and their bodies. We're also striving to help them establish a lifetime of healthy eating habits. So we started out the year with a staff brunch where we had made homemade baked goods, protein favorites, fresh fruits with granola, homemade granola and yogurt. I think it was a huge success. So the Abbey Group works with the Jaffrey Range School District with collaboration to educate learners from STEM to the arts to gym class. Nutrition is an integral part of their education. And we're trying to bring that to them in their breakfast and their lunch every day. That looks fun. This year's menus, we've left some fan favorites on there. The taco bar, we brought in some whole muscle chicken nuggets, roasted hand cut fries, Mr. Ed's famous pizza. So if you're ever at Jaffrey Grade School on pizza day, please stop by and get a slice. And then Kaylin's handmade pizza dough. We started at the beginning of the year and Kaylin left us for a while, but I'm excited to say she's back. And so that will be coming back to the high school relatively soon. And of course, the comfort food of broccoli chicken Alfredo, homemade meatloaf with mashed potatoes and shepherd's pie. And then we're trying to bring a little bit of culture with the ramen noodle bar, which is a huge hit at the high school. We haven't tried it at the middle school, but we plan on doing so probably in the fall. And then we offer some Asian chicken vegetable dumplings, which the kids love. And then the chicken and noodles, the Chinese chicken noodles, we tried it at the grammar schools. Not a huge hit, but Mr. Ed can sell anything. So he did really well that day. So this past fall, we were able to offer many delicious meals, and one that we're really proud of that we worked on with conjunction with the administration was our Thankful Meal. We invited local emergency responders to come in and dine with us and dine with the kids. And Chief Chamberlain was impressed. He loved coming in and chatting with the kids, sitting down, eating lunch with them. He said the food was really great. We had some local police officers come in as well. So that was a huge success for us. Learners paid it forward to us, and they had a wish for the kitchen staff. They wished that the kitchen staff could sit down and eat lunch one day. So the administration, Anne Marie, David, and Kim got together and brought in lunch for the staff in the high school and the staff in the middle school. While they ate their lunch in the cafeteria with the learners, David and Anne Marie and Kim served the learners that day lunch. So that was fun. They didn't quite know what to think of it, but they enjoyed it. And my staff enjoyed having a little bit of R&R. So in February and March, we did a lot of taste tests. So a taste test, if you guys ever come in, you'll see we have these little containers that we do just a little sampling for the kids to try. We did homemade hummus with homemade pita. Kids love that. We did some parsnip fries, which we served with sweet chili sauce. They really like that. We did a mushroom pizza one day here in the high school. And then here you'll see it's an arugula roasted beet salad with goat cheese and a maple vinaigrette. I love that. Oh, and then we also did pie day for the fifth graders. So all fifth graders at both Wrench Memorial and Jaffrey Grade School were able to have a little hand pie that I rolled out myself and made for them. They really appreciated that. So we have lots of great things coming up. Actually, we had lots of great things in April and May. The middle school tried the chicken wing bar. We've done this a couple of times at the high school. I have to say, it's boneless. The kids really like the boneless wings. The bone-in, not so much. We like the bone-in, but not them. And then you'll see here, Miss Shirley every day stocks the her grab and go cooler, which has fresh sandwiches, salads, parfaits. And this year she's introduced what she calls a fun meal, which is one would be a bagel with a yogurt. The other one is a pizza fun meal. And then we have a nacho fun meal. And all of these are served with the fresh fruit and vegetable also. So they have plenty of offerings every single day, which is really great. So now fun and exciting things coming up. We're actually looking forward to next year because along with Carrie, we were able to get a local grant through the New Hampshire Farm to School program. It's a pilot program. So we're looking and we're excited about that, looking for some local farms in the area to bring in some fresh fruit and vegetables, milk, cheese, dairy, anything that we can find that's made in New Hampshire, we're looking to bring in to serve to the kids. And then we're also exploring the National School Lunch Program has an equipment grant. So we're exploring that option as well. And then we're going to wrap up the year with a barbecue. We already have it on the calendar. This was last year's barbecue. We had a little fun with it. The high school and the middle school, we got to barbecue outside. We played some music for the kids. It was a fun thing. RMS is on June 9th. JGS is on June 10th. And then the middle school will be on June 12th and the high school will be on June 13th. So if you guys are in the neighborhood, come on and grab a burger, eat some potato salad, hang out with the kids. It'll be a great time. And I think there was one more slide, just some fun things you'll see over there. We do at Jaffrey Grade School and Ringe Memorial School, we do the fresh fruit and veggie program every day, 5 days a week. So every learner in the building gets a fresh fruit and vegetable as a snack every day. And then this is the typical meal there in the middle that a high schooler makes himself every day, which is really great. And there's a fan favorite pizza, mushroom pizza with goat cheese on it. So thank you.
Wanda, what a beautiful recap of the year. And hi, everybody. I'm Nina Hansen. I'm the Chief Operating Officer. Thank you. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Abbey Group. I met most of you last year. I was here with our owner, Sherry Underwood, who couldn't be here tonight, but I'm here to answer any questions that you might have about the program. In your folders, there's the budget for next year, and Carrie and I were just talking, it's right at the very back of the package. And she said, you might have some questions. You may notice that the subsidy actually went down this year. And so I'm here to let you know that we addressed less students this year. Enrollment went down by, Wanda was telling me, about 10%. So we did make some adjustments in labor that we didn't need. But at the same time, there's a lot of pressure on wages still going up and trying to stay competitive in the area to attract the type of people that we need: steady, reliable, capable, skilled people that we want serving the kids. So I think we've got a really steady crew now, and maybe not quite as much at the beginning of the year that we've had to make a couple of changes.
Some adjustments and things are going really smoothly, and I'm hoping to bring everybody back in the fall.
Right. Wanda meets with the students regularly at all of the schools to get feedback about the menus and, are we going in the right direction? What's interesting, what's not interesting for you to eat. I think we've done a great job with taste test. Sorry, with my back to you, Carrie. I'd love to see the numbers a little higher at the middle school. Middle school is tough, and they have asked us for like more pizzas and more, I guess, what we would consider, fast food a little bit. But we've tried to follow the wishes of the, wellness committee and, follow the guidance on what we're serving there. So we did, make that change when we first came into the program, and we're sticking with it. But that might be an area to, that could be open to some changes that could drive up revenue a bit in the middle school. And so if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. I know you had some good ones for me last year. And so again, you'll see that the subsidy is going down by the $12,000, maybe not quite that much. And I want to be honest with you that actually we made an error in our budget, but we're going to honor it. And the Abbey Group is going to, make sure that we cover that. We cover the difference from last year to this coming year. Our mistake. So we will honor that. And the farm to school grant will actually be an injection of $27,000 worth of product into the program. So I'm hoping that helps our food cost, which we're very nervous about with. None of us know what's gonna happen. You know, we try to buy domestically as much as possible, and that is a requirement in USDA programs that you buy American as much as possible, but we can't get American bananas or pineapples or some other things that the kids really like. We don't know yet what the rules are going to be in the fresh fruit and vegetable program, so that we're not serving apples all year, that we are able to offer a bit more variety. But $27,000 that I think will really help the local economy, and Wanda's already identified farms and producers that we're going to be working with. So that's very exciting.
You do surveys.
Yes.
Do you have survey data?
I actually do. I can forward that to you. I do have survey data. We just got it back, probably a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, how frequently do you do that?
That was the first one we've done. We'd like to do at least 1 or 2 a year.
Mhm. And we also
If
from,
you- Let me ask a question.
sure,
If you did your survey more frequently, would the data help you provide um, things that the kids want more rapidly, or we have to wait to the end of the year just to say I like the food or not?
right. Well, we do have the pattern from last year of what we served. So we know, the
Yeah,
days,
It's like a grocery store. You
It-
know what you're
we
selling.
know what we're selling.
Right.
And the amount. This area does not have a lot of free and reduced students, so there's not as much revenue coming into the program as in other areas. So that's definitely a factor, when we see 50 or 60% of the community meeting the requirements for free and reduced meals, but that's not our situation here. We're down at 30, Carrie, right around 30. So, so there's some price sensitivity for sure with families. Price sensitivity, yeah.
Yeah, do you know like what I see you have all the raw numbers here. You have an idea for like each school, what percentage of kids are bought, the number? You always
Yes,
have the raw
we
number,
do, and I
just so you
didn't,
can
I
track
didn't
it.
bring it, but I can
Yeah.
provide that to you. We calculate those numbers every month. And the highest ones are at Jaffrey Grade, where there is a higher percentage of free and reduced students there. So there's quite a bit more revenue coming into that program than the other ones.
When you say, a 10% decrease in enrollment, is that enrollment in the lunch program, enrollment in student
I
population?
have it as in the student population in my data, and Wanda concurred with me that we had lower enrollment this year.
Do we have 10% lower?
Carrie, does that make sense? I had about 50 kids in my data.
So I looked at the financials and I was looking at, excuse me, just overall sales. And the paid lunches, so I'm looking at March's report because April's hasn't been finalized yet. Year to date last year was at 158,000 and year to date this year was 148,000. And then for adults, it's about $900 more than last year. Breakfast sales are down about $3,000. For the students, a la carte sales are down about $4,000. And state reimbursements is about $9,000 less. Approximately.
Right.
The reimbursements would be indicative of, the free and reduced sales.
Right. So, so would you agree that over the 4 schools that there has been a decrease in student population? We send you those every month, what we have
5%,
and what we receive from the schools. The schools report their enrollment to us.
Mhm.
right?
And
There was a decrease in enrollment, not a 10% decrease, but
But around
you know,
50
it could be 50 kids.
50 kids
Yeah.
across 4 schools. So it's something
Mhm.
that would,
Mhm.
be reflected in the revenue as well.
Mhm.
Especially if they're free and reduced families that move out of the community.
And you had also mentioned the 12% stipend. Where is that on these sheets? Kind of
The subsidy?
12% decrease in the subsidy, is
It's a
that
decrease in the subsidy from last year.
right?
Yeah, so it's at the very bottom in the negative. There's a negative $64,000. Very bottom of the
Okay.
sheet. Do you see it? So last year, I want to say it was $72,000 negative. So we would have expected it, especially with the 50 less kids, to be around 72,000 again. But we made a calculation error and when we turned over the budget to Carrie, so we're going to leave it where it is. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
it's better for you.
I have a, just to piggyback on Charlie's question about the survey, who does that survey go to? Is it just students or does it go to parents?
To
Or not to everyone?
yes,
Great. Okay.
yes.
And then I forgot to mention that we do a survey from head office at the end of the school year, and we send it out to all the school admin and get feedback. And it was positive that we received from last year. Hope to get that again this year.
And I think I got approximately 65 responses out of the probably 1,000 that I had sent out, because I think that would be whatever we have for emails in the system. And I sent it out to at 2 different separate occasions.
Yeah, it would be great if you're available to share that
I
survey,
will
if you could send that to the
Yep.
board, we'd love that, yeah.
And I'll share the year-end one that we do as well.
Yeah, I think, just so I hear what you're saying. I have 2 kids in the middle school, so I hear what you're saying about the challenges, certainly with that age group, maybe. But also appreciate the fact that you're sticking with that mission. I think that the reason why the district, turned to you is because that commitment to nutrition and healthy, it's easy to start serving up, fried food.
Hot dogs, all,
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
so yeah, I think it sounds like you guys have your kind of finger on that pulse and are looking for different creative ways to interest them. And I think that's, yeah.
And it might be that, once this flight is finished in middle school, the ones coming in haven't known anything different.
Right.
And so, they'll be more excited in the program.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
if they're buying lunch every day. at
Right,
Elementary school, right? Excellent.
right.
The middle schoolers go right from lunch to outdoors, right? Is that correct? I think that's something I hear at home is that the wish to have food they could eat quicker so they could spend more time outside. It's just one of them. I don't know what the answer is to that one.
The master scheduler.
Yeah. Smoothies, put everything in a smoothie and let them go.
Right, right.
So we did change our policy, our billing policy this year, and how did that impact? Using the,
I'm glad you brought that up because one of the really things that had a huge impact actually with students that don't come and eat because they know that they cannot. It doesn't just get rung in anonymously, I guess, if you will. It is put on their account and it goes home to the parents to pay. So that is a big change this year.
Yeah, I mean, I have learners from kindergarten level to the senior level in high school asking daily what they have in their lunch account for funds. We never refuse a learner, whatever meal we're serving, they're getting that meal. But it is a concern. I've actually done taste tests and I've had learners say, well, do I have to pay for this? Is this free? And I'm like, the taste test is free. You get to taste it. So I know it is a huge concern. It's a
definitely a weight on the learners' shoulders and families as well.
Do you think this is part of the, reason you have fewer people, students eating in the cafeterias?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Ruben, I suppose that the free school lunches aren't in the proposed budget. Like
The state proposed
they have
budget.
in Massachusetts, Maine, Connecticut,
Vermont,
Vermont.
everywhere but New Hampshire.
Yeah, yeah, and it's certainly around here. I mean, in New England, it's the norm, right?
It is the norm in New England. Yeah. Taking care of kids is the norm in New England.
What were they doing?
New Hampshire is
there?
a little bit behind the.
Yeah, it was free during COVID.
That's what I thought, because my friend drove the bus, and he used to bring meals down the street from my neighbor, and I used to tease him, he was waking me up, but I know they were delivering them, so it was free during the COVID, but now it's not free.
Mhm.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it, all right.
So we saw everywhere, all across New Hampshire, a huge drop in participation in the meal programs once, the pricing came back.
Well, I'd like to also implement some kind of fun thing for the kids, because I also know free and reduced kids do feel stigmatized as well. Like I've heard the kids say, well, I'm not going to get breakfast because it's only for the free kids. And
Right.
I don't
Only
want
for the-
anybody to
only for the
feel-
poor kids.
Yeah, only
Yeah.
for the poor kids. I don't want anybody to feel like they're only the free kids can eat breakfast. Everybody can eat breakfast. And so I feel like a lot of students, even if they are free or reduced, are not coming in and eating, especially breakfast. Our
Right.
breakfast numbers definitely could come up. Especially breakfast. I really need to promote that more and look at different ways and work with the principals. Right now at RMS, we still serve, the students still come in, they take their breakfast and they go to the classroom and eat their breakfast. Whereas Jaffrey Grade School, they all come into the cafeteria and they all eat their breakfast there. And we're serving approximately 75 to 100 students a day at Jaffrey Grade School for breakfast, and maybe 35 at Ranch Memorial School. So I'm almost wondering if we start getting the kids to come, all the kids to come into the cafeteria and eat breakfast, that there'll be a bigger participation there as well. Another thing too, to implement would be, the high school breakfast, we keep that open until 10 o'clock. So high schoolers are, they can come down and get a breakfast sandwich or whatever, whenever they want. For middle school, we do not, and they do not have the flexibility, I would say, to come down. So maybe like a second breakfast, a second, something in the schedule where students could feel free to come down and grab something if they wanted to participate in breakfast.
But I will say, as a former fat kid, that would have been a nightmare for my parents, because they constantly had me on a diet, and if I could have gone to school and had multiple meals, I would have been like destroying all my diet sodas they would give me in salads, so it is like, it's different for every kid and every family, but I know
Yes.
my parents would have been like, oh.
More opportunities to eat. right?
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely a balance, and I
Right,
agree, it would be
right.
great to target breakfast and brainstorm with the school principals on how to,
To balance it.
Yeah.
Yes, to balance it out.
Right,
I've
I
heard
also
my
don't
own
want, I don't
kids
want
saying that.
any children to also feel like they have to eat breakfast.
right, it's,
Right.
it is,
But I mean.
it's tough, I know.
There are plenty of reports and studies out there to show how important breakfast is
Yeah.
for the mind and the
Definitely.
learner.
Mhm.
Definitely. It's the second breakfast I worry about.
Yeah.
I would been all over that.
I mean, more like the children who didn't get a chance to
Right.
go.
Right.
To the line.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get a chance because the bell rang and I had to get to my class.
Because I
But
was
now
late.
have
Yeah.
like a 5-minute
Yeah.
window here that I can go down and grab something before my next class.
Right, yeah, yeah. Those kids definitely need them.
How common is it to get donations to help offset the cost of this? Have you?
Do we have a donor?
No,
No, sometimes some communities do have a benefactor.
yeah, I mean, here, like, how many we've gotten, maybe, I can think of maybe one over the last 3 years,
That sounds about
right? I think I remember that. So I'm just throwing that out there for the people that are watching and listening. I know there's a lot of talk about certainly limited funds, and this to me is one that
Right,
if you care about kids, it's an easy way to probably
totally is.
make money go a long way,
Right,
right? I mean, because the meals are, not, I mean,
I mean,
$3-4.
for breakfast, It's $2.25 for
Right.
breakfast, and you're getting, all your components that you're getting 5 components, you're getting milk, You're getting a grain, you're getting a protein, you're getting a vegetable.
Right, so
Maybe
$500 would buy
Yeah,
Yeah,
quite a few meals.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there, and I know that we do certainly
What about
accept.
like
those
accept donations.
grocery stores? I know sometimes like Shaw's, they'll say, do you want to like, round up your, charges to the next dollar to give to the community? Like, could we get a grocery store like Shaw's?
Hannaford's in particular has a program. And I don't know how it's designed, but not quite like Shaw's, but they do have a program and they have raised money for the school in the past.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, something like that, because nobody minds, rounding up to help the community. I don't know.
also maybe starting programs for recycling and composting to help food waste and get the learners involved in that. Actually would be a great help because then they're not throwing food away into the rubbish can. They're more aware of what they're eating, what they're taking.
Okay, I'll turn over the microphone.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you.
for the
Thank you.
presentation. And yeah, that'd be great to see the survey results.
Yes, I will send that to.
Much appreciated.
Send it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Okay. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have the manifests. We have payroll and deductions. We have a nomination of Emily Iacobelli for paraprofessional for JGS. And we have the stipend list. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Chris. A second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Christine. And any more discussion? Okay, so all in favor
I,
and opposed and abstained? Great, passes 600. And we have the minutes for the last non-public meeting and the public meeting. We'll take motions.
I will make a motion to accept the minutes of the April 21st non-public meeting.
Okay, thank you, Christine.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Judy. Or is that Sandy?
Sandy.
Sandy, thank you. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
I,
Opposed? Abstain? 600.
I move we accept the minutes for the April 21st meeting as presented.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Judy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Discussion? Great, pass 600. Action items. Food Service Management Company contract renewal. It's up on the screen and in the minutes.
And I believe at the bottom, Carrie always does a nice job putting the motion down on paper in writing, so that I don't forget key elements of the, let's be honest why it's done. So yeah, so the business office is recommending the renewal of the Abbey Group for the 25-26 fiscal year. We had a presentation from them tonight. In the chart, you see a summary of the financials. And then a suggested motion on the bottom.
I'll make a motion to approve the renewal of the Abbey Group as the manager of the district's food service operations for the 2025-26 fiscal year and authorize Superintendent Duncan to execute amendment number 2 on behalf of the district.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Charlie. Any further discussion?
I just think that what's this going to be the third year? And I don't know, I think the feedback.
Next year will be the
next
third
year's
year,
gonna be the
yeah.
Third
yeah.
year, right? I think the feedback, I think. To me, we've got what we've expected. I don't know, Christina, you were probably maybe more involved than.
I just hear good things.
Right.
Sorry, Christine, you still?
Hmm?
Were you still, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh,
keep
I
talking.
just hear good things.
I confess I was a little nervous when I saw this was on the docket for tonight because of the heavily increased costs just at the grocery store. I really was expecting a far greater projection for what foods was going to be costing next year. So I am impressed with, I feel that this is reasonable, and I'm kind of taken aback that we can continue the quality service that we have with a very, very little change to our budget. So,
Is that the case though, or is that gonna be a separate item when we discuss like prices for next year?
oh, well, this is, well, prices, that's a later discussion.
Yeah.
But for them to come at us with this contract of, seems like we're in a good place. And
Add to that.
yes, please.
Wait, can we have a microphone? Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention and remind everybody on the board that the program losses on here that you're authorizing for the contract renewal aren't the total food service costs the district incurs. This is the Abbey Group's losses. So the loss to the program that the general fund supports includes repairs and maintenance, supplies, other dues and fees that the district has to pay for that are not part of the Abbey Group's responsibility. So you may see that we have to have a larger loss come from the general fund because of those other costs on top of any losses to the Abbey Group. And then the other question was about the meal prices. So their budget will not change if we have to increase meal prices. The PLE tool, which is something we're required to complete every year to show that we're meeting the requirements of our meal prices, has not been released by the USDA yet. And the state is not aware at this time when it will be released, but I'm required to make the meal prices part of the food service contract when the state approves it. So that will be coming to the board at some point, should we need to increase the meal prices, and I'm hoping soon, because that's the last piece that has to be put into the food service contract.
What the board did, even though it was difficult, arguably they did really the right thing last year by increasing the costs so that we would either be in good shape this year or, well, good shape either way, depends on how you look at it, but that we wouldn't have as much of an increase going forward. But to your point, food costs are every week are going up. And it concerns me that that coupled is only going to perpetuate the problem that is food insecurity for these kids.
Right, it could further.
Yeah.
If we're raising our prices, it could further reduce the sales in the program.
But I
But
mean,
there's
even
not
at
much
home, let's say the prices
Yeah.
remain the same and everything remains status quo here. You have people perhaps being able to afford less food at home, so the nutrition isn't happening there, and which makes it more important that the schools are here to do what we need to do for our kids. I know that's a topic always at in the wellness committee.
Thank you so much, Karen. Appreciate that.
I also think the food service should give a questionnaire to the kids as to what they like. I want their feedback to know, like, what meals they thought were good and which ones said weren't as good.
No, I'm looking forward to their survey coming back.
Yeah, because the parents, it's one thing, but the kids, they know.
I did take a look at the survey. I don't think it asked specifically about which, I don't know what the kids survey looked like, but for the parents, I don't think it asked about the meals, obviously, because we're not eating the meals. But in the past, the Abbey Group, just so you know, Judy had said that they can tell what's popular and not popular based on sales.
Leftovers and, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in a sense, you're surveying them every day.
Because the kids,
It's something that's
especially in middle and high school, the kids do have more choices. Grade school has some choices, but the middle and high school have more dynamic choices, I guess. I don't know, more active choices.
Okay,
If it's something they don't offer, it wouldn't show up
That's true.
in their inventory. So,
Yeah, things they might like.
and also I think that they ought to be asking questions about the service. All right, and the arrangement of the serving lines and things like that, and how much time it takes to get through. Those are important issues that you can get feedback on. Anyway,
Any further discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Motion passes 6-0-0. Next on the action items are the New Hampshire Farm to School Grant Award.
So the district has been awarded, you heard them say, a $27,000 grant to participate in the New Hampshire Farm to School Local Food Incentive Pilot Program. And so this motion would be to accept that. I don't know, Carrie, if you have anything further that you would want to add to describe to that. That's not my understanding is that's not the fresh fruits and vegetable program. It's actually to purchase food for the daily food program itself, but making sure that the food is from local area, from New Hampshire, local farm areas. Yep.
Nice.
So as they stated, I'm sure that it's going to cost a little bit more to purchase that way, but it still may have a positive impact on their finances or our finances as well by having this.
And Carrie, before we vote, does this have a lot of required reporting that would make this cumbersome on the?
It does have reporting, and I already reviewed it with the Ag group to ensure that they would be able to meet the requirements before we even submit the application.
Okay.
So we should be all set.
Okay. And Carrie, my understanding is that this is a dual action item where I need to do a separate, so we can vote to approve the grant, accept the award, and then there's a separate motion that needs to be made.
The second page, yes, please.
Okay, on the second page. All right, so let's do two motions, please. The first, for the first page. The Jaffrey Ridge Cooperative School District has been awarded a $27,000 grant to participate in the New Hampshire Farm to School Local Food Incentive Pilot Program. Purpose of this grant is to increase the use of New Hampshire products in school meal programs by enhancing collaboration between New Hampshire schools and New Hampshire producers. And this is related to the House Bill 1678, establishing this purchasing incentive pilot program. And the program will run through June 30th, 2026, and it is in the amount of $27,000. So would somebody like to make the following motion?
I move that we accept the $27,000 in New Hampshire Farm to School Local Food Incentive Pilot Program grant funds and authorize Superintendent Duncan to execute the grant agreement on behalf of the district.
Thank you, Sandy. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Judy. Any further discussion?
Before we go forward, I just want to make that point. Although I do run a farm, we would not be selling to the school. We are too small of a farm to offer anything to the school. So just in case anybody's listening and they're wondering, this does not involve my business or create any conflict of interest.
I'm curious, does this involve local egg production?
It's any New Hampshire. Yeah, so if it's on a farm,
That'd be great to get the eggs.
Well, that's the good thing about this is that it could be local meat too,
Right.
which would be a
Be
significant
amazing. Yeah.
increase in quality.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, significant increase in quality. Yeah.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. So, and that was Sandy and Judy, you guys first and seconded that, correct? Thank you. All right, the second part of this, if we go down. All right,
it says
we-
voted that paragraph.
okay, so we need a motion to say that Superintendent Ruben Duncan or CFO Carrie Shields are duly authorized to enter into contracts or agreements on behalf of the Jaffrey Ridge Cooperative School District with the state of New Hampshire and any of its agencies or departments, and further are authorized to execute any documents which may, in their judgment, be desirable or necessary to effect the purpose of this vote. Can we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Sandra, second, please.
I'll second.
Christine, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Thank you. Passes 600. Next action item, we are looking at a new TD Bank account.
And I'll have Carrie talk about this one, but this is to it's really for just making sure we have all our checks and balances, but to ensure compliance with RSA 15.5. It's recommended that we have some separate accounts for the purpose of processing dues, payments, and third-party entities. But if you, Carrie, I don't know if you have the microphone, want to talk a little bit more about this? I believe this came out in our audit, did it not? The district's audit
No,
as not a requirement, as a recommendation, no?
it was not part of the audit, no, but it's been discussed in some professional development
Oh.
workshops that I've,
Mhm.
New Hampshire ASBO,
Yep.
that I've attended, that other districts have done this exact thing in order to meet the requirements of New Hampshire RSA 15.5. So basically, we need to deposit only local funds into this account so that we can show that no state funds are being used to pay dues to any entity that might be lobbying for changes to legislation. And since many members of the district where we pay dues, the administrators, myself included, to organizations such as, well, New Hampshire ASBO doesn't lobby, but it could be the New Hampshire School Administrators Association, the Superintendents Association, Principals Associations, things like that. They may lobby the legislature, and we're paying dues to those in order to be able to obtain professional development to retain our licensors. So we're required to meet licensing requirements, so we're members of these organizations to get the professional development that we need. However, this law prohibits state funding being used to pay dues to those organizations that might be lobbying to change legislature. So the intent of this is to create a separate checking account called a dues checking account, where we would deposit only local monies into it, such as the daycare funds that we receive. That would be the revenue that would be deposited in this account, and we would be paying checks for dues memberships out of that checking account. So it would still be part of the general fund. It would just be a separate checking account.
And it's paid for through revenues?
No,
No.
no. So it's separate. The expenses are separate. So you it's just cash. The cash that gets deposited is a balance sheet account. So the cash, we're using that checking account as cash because the cash is in there. So we're depositing the checks. Does that make sense? I don't want to confuse. It gets confusing when we talk about expenses and revenues, but those are different issues.
So, in order to have a dollar in the checking account, where does the dollar come from?
What do you mean? We don't need to budget this if that's what you mean.
No, I mean,
Okay.
if you're gonna write a check for anything, you gotta have something in the account to write it on.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. We're going to be depositing the daycare checks we receive from staff that put their kids in daycare here
But the
into
way I
that
read
account.
that, the state money did not include local money.
That's local money we're getting from the daycare.
Let me finish.
I'm sorry.
About 99% of our budget, I shouldn't say 99, 90% of our budget is locally funded. No, wrong. 60% of our budget is locally
Mhm.
funded. Okay,
Mhm.
so is there a way of moving any of those dollars into that checking account?
So that would be the ideal situation that we could do. However, the law states that mere bookkeeping does not meet that requirement. So we can't do transfers from a bookkeeping side. We have to actually deposit local funds into the account. So we can't deposit it into our regular general fund account and then transfer it.
And the tax money goes right
It's-
into our regular general fund account.
So
Yes.
the tax revenue we receive from the towns includes the state portion of SWEPT. So unless we ask the town to send us a separate check for SWEPT and local assessments, this was the alternative I thought made more sense rather than asking the towns to cut us two separate
So then
checks
let
every
me ask
month.
Another question.
Uh-huh.
All right. Based on the amount that you're putting in and the dues that you're paying out,
Mhm.
is there a risk of overspending that account?
No.
Okay. Answer my question. Thank you.
Further discussion?
Thank you for not making me do two separate checks.
And I want to thank you for watching out for us. What a small little piddly thing that's probably very, very easy to not see and then to get slammed with in an audit or get, thank you for watching out for us so well. So do we have a motion to approve for the creation of this separate bank account?
So moved.
All right, this is a move to authorize a new dues checking account and approve Gary Arisi,
Arcisi.
and Ann Dia Whippen as the authorized signers.
Second.
Congress first, so second, Chairman?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? So moved, 600. We have no request to waive facility fees at this time. We do have policies to look at. So I'm going to begin this by talking about the policy committee meeting, which was very productive. Thank you, Chris and Charlie and Judy for attending. We made some edits to how we want to present our policies. And we'll talk about that when we do the BCB, but you kind of need to see the comparison. So Ruben, if you'd open up the IMBC one. So this is currently the alternative credit options that we would like to have approved. It's a priority required by law. And this shows at the top all of the New Hampshire School Board Association edits and updates. And then the policy actually begins right there where it says credit may be earned. That's the beginning of the policy. And so this is a policy that we'd like for a second reading to be approved tonight. Again, it is a priority where we didn't make any changes to the School Board Association in this policy. And, it has an adjoining policy, JLBAA, to take a look at. Let's see if I can take a look at that real quick. I think I can. Was there any other adjoining policies on that, please, Ruben?
Was it ILBAA?
JLBAA. Do not have JLBAA.
Yeah, these are all I policies right here. ILBAA. It looks like a J from there.
Is it really?
Yep, if I can enlarge it.
Oh,
There
it is.
There you go. And so then it's IK.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yep.
All right. Gotcha. All right, ILBAA is quick K-12 competencies. IK is the earning of credit. IHBG is homeschooling and non-public schooling. IHBH is extending learning opportunities. IMBA, is that right?
Mhm.
IMBA is the assessment of educational programs. IHCD. HCD is advanced coursework, advanced placement courses. I'll go to LEB in a second, and that's going to be the same with LEB. IKFA. Early graduation. And IMBD. Seventh and eighth grade coursework. That is not a policy we have. So the reason that I just did that, checking to make sure that we have those in our records, is that what we're finding is that there is a large gap when we approve policies between when they get approved for a second reading and the board finalizes and says, this is finished, let's get it loaded on the, and make it part of our process, to when it actually gets loaded, in great part because we have policies that are extraneous on this. So my recommendation for this, because we do not have the 7th and 8th grade coursework meeting the standards of board policy, I would like to have that section removed at this time and approve this policy as amended, removing the 7th, 8th grade coursework IMBD policy, which is not something that we currently have. Oftentimes when we don't have those kind of policies, they are part of larger policies in other areas. That's, you know, so I think we can definitely just approve this as amended, should you guys wish to do that. So let's start there with this conversation. Any further discussion on policy? Which one are we on? Getting lost. Yeah, policy IMBC, alternative credit options. Yes.
Yeah, I just have a question. The policy directs the superintendent to establish regulations and procedures for implementing this policy, which will include a whole bunch of stuff. I just wonder how much of that we already have and how much more it's going to take to do that.
Oh, but we function with this policy already.
That's what I thought it
Yeah.
was going to be.
Yeah.
Yep.
And while I can't remember what the policy for 7th, 8th grade coursework is, I know we meet the standards of that one too. Or exceed it. Largely because of how the school is joined together.
Okay,
So I'll make a motion to accept it.
as amended, removing that 7th
Yes,
and
the
8th
first
grade
reading.
coursework. Okay,
Yeah.
in a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Chris. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye, opposed? Abstain? Thank you. So now if we look at the next one, BCB, this is the one that we've been talking about and we sent back to committee. This is what we would like our future policies to look like when we bring them to you for first reading. We would like to bring you common language, fully formed, all completely vetted, all extraneous New Hampshire School Board Association or other information removed. If somebody chooses to see that, we can absolutely get that to you. But what we are proposing as a policy committee is a much more streamlined viewing and time frame. So what you're seeing is a final product we'd like to go before you and open to your edits, with the purpose of, after a second reading gets approved, we as a policy committee are asking for all policies to be posted online within 2 weeks. So they should not be going back through multiple people for review after the school board approves it a second time. The review should be happening in the time frame between when it is first posted on the agenda and then the second reading is final. And so to this end, we are proposing that the policy committee bring you fully formed, no need for edit unless the school board does that. Or after the first reading, if admin come in and say, oh, I looked at this, let's take a closer look at this piece. We can always say, oh, let's take it back to committee like we did with this policy. So what we're hoping is that it can administratively be pushed from second reading approval to the web, to IT for the, like, it's just a done deal.
Mhm.
So for this policy, I would like to have you guys ruminate on that topic for a second while we look at this policy and the changes that we made. If you could scroll down to this is completely what the New Hampshire School Board Association proposed, except for this paragraph, which was taken in part from our previous policy and also edited to have a few more specifics for intention. Our focus really was on the nepotism piece of it. And so the highlighted area are the changes that we made in policy. If you could take a look and let's discuss further.
Yeah, and I'll just say just to summarize our discussion that we had in the committee meeting. For most of us were there, but for the few of you that weren't there, it really was just being a little bit more specific about when a board member would need to recuse themselves from debating, discussing, or voting on any matter. We had quite a long discussion about it, but eventually kind of deferred up to the language that's in this new policy, right? So we didn't make up any language. We simply took this language here that was in our previous policy and added some clarification, which is language from the new policy, which describes voting on the matter, which is the outcome is a personal pecuniary interest that is immediate, definite, demonstrable, and specific to the individual employee. And the next language he added, I think, was our own, just to provide a few examples, like stipends, collective bargaining agreement negotiations. So for instance, like an overall budget vote, because of this, would not be included, per this policy, just making that clear. So if Charlie's brother, who we've talked about a few times now, were to work for the district, Charlie couldn't sign his stipend agreement or negotiate a collective bargaining agreement with his group. However, because that provides that immediate, definite impact to his brother, but certainly wouldn't need to recuse himself from voting on the overall budget or just executive matters. So that's what we came up with.
What about the voting on a collective bargaining agreement? So not negotiating the agreement, but what about voting on that?
No, that would not be.
I would see that the same way, okay? If my brother was a member of JRSSA, then I would recuse myself from the JRSSA, but that would leave plenty of board members here unless all of us had brothers.
That's, what I have to honestly say that as a new person here, that's what I wondered. Does everyone have a relative? And if you do, I know how.
It's only certain ones, Judy.
Okay, but I'm just saying, all right, I know how trouble starts to brew. I know everybody has their heart in the right place and everything's good. But I just know how some of my friends are, that they'll start out their emails, my Peterborough friends will be like, oh, have you heard any good gossip lately? And like, if they found out, like, if I still lived up there and they found out, like, that some relationship in the government that was kind of, they were all over it. They love that. And then they just pick it apart, which is why I was mentioning to you today, Lisa. Like, let's just have like a really simple, straightforward thing, like this person is related to that, this person, and just have it there. So we're like, yeah, what of it? We told you, like, stop it. It's not interesting. I don't know how to handle it, but I just know gossip is so popular, and everyone has to admit when they, are introspective about this, that we have to hire people who are related to each other because there are so few people who live here. But I don't know how to handle it, but my opinion is just have some way that everybody knows who's related to whoever, so that it's just not interesting anymore. And people like Isabel and Max, just, what can they say? It's public information who's related to who, but that's just my input.
It's a small town, everybody's related to everybody.
Right, right. So it has to be inspected, but like, you know, when people get, you know, some little juicy tidbit of
Are you suggesting then that I should be able to vote on whether my brother gets a?
No, I
pilot?
don't, but I think,
Okay,
I think that it should be on like some little document somewhere that your brother, you know, it works for the school system, you know,
I
so.
would
that-
still have to recuse myself.
Oh, you absolutely
And I would
would.
still have to.
You absolutely
apply.
So
would.
just document like the current, and it doesn't have to be like.
Yeah, just who's
policy or
related to
anything, but Here's our list of,
relatives.
here's our list of any fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, wives, husbands, sons.
Household members, you know, family members. Yeah, just have a little list so that
Either that, or we
nobody.
can maybe announce it before every meeting.
Yeah, we don't need to do that, but I just wanna like avoid gossip.
No, I think that's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah,
There's nothing to
because
hide.
then it's not interesting. They don't have fun talking about it.
Just for the minutes, in this
Yes.
discussion,
Yes,
all right, my brother is hypothetical. He
yes,
does
oh,
not-
right, you
he
do,
doesn't-
yeah. Good, good, yeah,
We're the one
I
that's bringing it up.
knew that, but that's good to know that. Okay, that's my only, you know, feedback.
I don't have a problem with doing that.
Could it be like
An addendum,
an addendum to
Yeah.
this policy?
so we could update it,
Could be up.
yeah.
It sounds reasonable enough, because I
And
tend to
just so
agree
people
with,
know.
with Judy. It's like, all right, so we have a document on there that says Lisa's daughter is a teacher at the school and my wife is a paraprofessional at the library.
And that's fine, and it's good, it's
Takes
like,
us 5 minutes. And
yeah, and
Or just
we
wear a
appreciate
t-shirt.
their help.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's probably a good idea.
it just protects everybody.
But we may need to think about using like names and stuff like, or just have a relation, right? I don't know. Let's be careful about the way.
Yeah, you
but-
could say that you have a relation. You know, it doesn't, I don't care how you do it. I just think something like that to just make sure that we're really transparent.
You have a relation in the bargaining unit, in the JRSSA bargaining unit.
Right, something,
Yeah.
something along those lines that
Yes.
defines probably without using names and
Yeah, right.
besides like the board members. Name. That's a problem. I don't know. I think that's not a,
I think
Yeah,
Just a
I was
few,
gonna
a
ask
lot
one.
of.
yeah, I mean,
Oh, go ahead.
because then again, I ask the question like, how often do you need to say it?
Yeah, exactly. You
Somebody's like
shouldn't
thinking-
have to keep repeating it, but you know, if they want, if they're that interested, then they can go look it up.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And yeah, you don't have to name names, just say you have a relative in the bargaining unit or some.
So this is, I wouldn't say this is nepotism. But just because we're talking about financial gain or some sort of gain, is there, what about if you have children in the district and we are voting on like whether they go on a field trip or things of that nature? Is that,
Yeah, I mean,
But
just out of
Yeah.
curiosity, just for discussion purposes,
Yeah.
because I'm just
If
trying,
you mention.
along the same lines, is
If
that
you mention you
something?
have children in the district, like, yeah,
is that a pecuniary interest?
Personal.
Food prices are,
What?
food prices are, when we increase lunches.
Yeah, but you don't do that by person.
yeah.
You don't have a list of people that are
No,
set
so I think
aside. that
That's what you're
says-
saying is, it
it's
just,
gotta be like to the person, I think, was our intent in crafting it. So if like the 8th grade's gonna go on a field trip. That, you know, I think a board member that was related to someone that was in the 8th grade
But
would be able to vote
but
on that.
Wouldn't the kid have to sign up for the field trip? The field trip is just for the 8th grade. So your child isn't specifically going on the field trip
That's
unless
true.
they sign up. So it's general purpose 8th grader thing. It's not personal.
So I go back,
Yeah,
that I could say that the JREA contract is for the purpose of teachers and for the community and making, so why is that?
Regardless.
But it has,
Who's in it?
but it has a specific salary schedule for that individual.
right.
yeah, it does. The collective bargaining agreement has places where it designates specific people by name. This is their step. This is where they will be projected over a few years. There are places where it is specific. We don't see that online in the final, but that is part of the negotiations and it's part of the process. I will say that this is if you're okay for me to chime in now. This was actually an interesting conversation and I really struggled with where this went, with you and I today. So we have always, the people in this group have always said, I'm going to abstain from this. I'm going to recuse myself from this because my family. We've done this in ourselves. We've done this in non-public, and it's a matter of ethics, right? And that's where all of us have seen this. And so to delineate specifics is very helpful because I really believe our role is to vote on and have discussions and fight over the fiscal, the fiscal things with our program and the policies and really have these deep conversations. And I'm not going to recuse myself because I have a family member who's in the district of reasons that I was voted into this position. Here's where the sand is shifting for me though. And I strongly disagree that we should be publicly saying when there is a vote on something that what the relationship is, or that I have a relationship and so I'm not going to vote on many things other than pretty much what we put here. The example, Judy, that you gave today, if we can talk about that for a second.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So the example that Judy gave today was if there is a member of a board's family or close relative who is using a service, specifically the daycare was mentioned, because that's an interesting service that we have here. And
I was hoping you weren't going to bring that up because I decided I didn't want to bring up that topic because I thought it was a little too close to people's hearts, but you brought it up, so you opened the door. Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
well, that's
Go
fair
ahead.
to.
Yeah, I was gonna
We have such
leave
a
that one
unique,
up.
it's such a unique service that we do. And so the reason I want to bring it up is because,
Don't get me started.
okay, we won't.
Okay,
into
go
how
ahead. You
feel
say
about the
your
service.
piece and then I'm gonna, because I am a different sort of representative of the community. Go ahead. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so this isn't about the service. This is about being transparent as a board
Yes.
if we have a member taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
So that I spent a few hours kind of wrestling with why am I so angry at that thought? And that was because that is so private to disclose somebody's children and to open up that specific, like, this is what they're utilizing, this is what they're not, and have that open for discussion or have that open. And just by saying I recuse myself of this because I have a family member who's taking part, opens them up to speculation. And I could never open my family members up to speculation or to any kind of, like you called it, gossip. Like my job is my job here, but I will walk out before I start opening up my family to any speculation. It's none of anybody's business. And so I had to really think about, where does privacy come into this? And how do we protect our kids, our spouses, our brothers? How do we do this being transparent, but afford them the privacy that every single other employee gets? Just because they're a relative or somebody close to us, they don't get the same privacy rights? Like, that can't be right.
So I believe that we need to back up and look at the big picture and what the purpose is here. The purpose here is to safeguard public funds. They want to make sure that people in authority, board members, are not using the system, all right, to benefit themselves or their families, that quote conflict of interest. So that if you keep that in mind, in terms of the implementation of this, all you want to be able to do is say, hey, there are certain things that if I vote on them, all right, I have a conflict between my own family and the appropriate use of public funds. Okay, and just to be clear, no matter what I do, I don't want to have the perception of a conflict of interest. And to do that means that if I have one very close relative, not all relatives, not my cousins or nephews, but closer relatives that are in a position, are in a position to financially directly benefit from this decision, then I need to remove myself from that decision and let other people make that decision. And I think that's the important thing here is that we're trying to safeguard public funds. And I don't think that it's about privacy or anything else. I think it's a very simple thing that says, hey, look, you know, if I'm in a position of making that kind of decision, I have to defer to not making the decision.
You don't even necessarily need to say why, you can just recuse yourself.
Well, no, you can just recuse yourself. You're right.
Yeah, because I will say as. Okay, first of all, I'll preface this by saying center-based daycare for infants, the average price in New Hampshire is $17,000 a year. For preschool daycare, it's $14,000 a year. If this had been going on in the school system where my daughter was attending school back in the days when I was a single mom working my tail off as an engineer at Raytheon and trying to do everything with absolutely, my mom had Alzheimer's, I had no support. And I was paying probably, I would say $1,500 a month for daycare when she was when she was a toddler, and probably $2,000 before that, when she was an infant. And I was paying property taxes, I was paying my mortgage, I was paying all my bills. And if I had found out that people in the school system were paying 1/3 of what I was paying and getting the benefit of having the comfort of having their child at their workplace, I would have been very angry. So this is why I wasn't going to bring it up, because it's an emotional topic. I had to be alone with my father died when I was 21. My mom had Alzheimer's. I had no family and I had to pay everything myself. So as someone who also is here to try to represent the viewpoint of older people who may not still be working, that are trying to pay their bills and stuff, I just want some idea that if someone's on the board and they're getting the benefit of this, which I'm not trying to take away anything, I just want to know who's getting the benefit. And I don't need to know details, but I think they should recuse themselves from that vote, because a $600 a month daycare center is just the biggest benefit and wonderful idea I could ever think of. But for the poor person who, like me, has a corporate job and has to pay the $17,000 a year, you know, I just want to know. I just want to know. And that's who I'm speaking for, those constituents.
All right, further discussion on this?
We don't have anybody that uses the daycare. So,
I just want to know, that's all.
so
And I
if you're
think
looking for
other
an answer,
people
there's
would.
nobody on this board that uses the daycare.
Okay,
The thing is that I feel really uncomfortable
Whether I
even
actually
saying
tell you
that out
or
loud.
not.
Chris,
It's-
I'm sorry, I feel really uncomfortable even saying that out loud.
Yeah, I know.
well then good.
That's a privacy thing.
Yeah.
It's not privacy. You're using a service that I don't know if it makes a profit, if it loses money, whatever, but it's part of the school. And as long as it's a school, a public school that taxpayers are paying for, they need to know. They need to know. And that's all. And if it doesn't affect anybody, then fine. But I don't think it's necessarily personal. I don't see how it would be. If I were at work and using a daycare center, I'd be listed as someone who's using the daycare center. It's no big deal.
If you're looking for privacy, don't work in public anything.
Public facing anything. Or
Anytime you're
publicly traded
using
companies.
somebody else's money, you gotta be very careful.
Yeah,
I think you spelled it out good, Charlie.
exactly.
So by being in this position, I've sacrificed my family's privacy.
No, why?
All you have to do is say you'll recuse yourself.
Yeah.
It's none of my business why.
So by doing so, should I recuse myself from everything, since if I want to protect a family member from whether they have use of the services or not.
You know
Simply
what?
by
If they're a
recusing
public
myself,
employee-
that would be exposing them to speculation.
They're a public employee, their salaries, I believe, are listed online. Everything's online. This is a public entity.
Okay, their salaries are not listed online.
Yes,
They're
they are.
as a person. As an
You can,
individual
the
name.
state website, it has people's salaries. It really does. I've seen them. Okay, this is a public entity. So I believe if taxpayers are paying for it, they need to know that the people on the board aren't voting in favor of things that will ultimately affect them, like, topics about having a daycare center, not having one, where we cut budgets when we have to cut budgets. Disclosure, that's all. Completely reasonable.
Is it possible that the board would get to the point where
Nobody could vote.
we wouldn't have a quorum on a vote? I mean, would we have to have a quorum on a vote?
So like for the budget. Right, you need a quorum.
Well, you need a quorum to,
Right, well, so abstaining would be part of that, right?
But recusing is like.
no,
It's recused.
no.
You have three
Yeah,
people.
you just need the, you need a quorum to take a vote.
But what we're talking about here is not abstaining from the vote. It's not voting and abstaining, it's recusing yourself.
Mhm. Oh, I
Going to
see.
the back of the room.
And in my mind, there are very few subjects that come before the board that would require that.
Same. Yeah, that's where, let's get there.
So not, for instance, the price of school lunches or field trips.
No,
No, that's not life changing, but paying half of what the going rate is or less for daycare when other mothers in this district are struggling to pay their property taxes and buy food. People just want to know. I would want to know. I'm speaking for them.
but that is in and of itself a whole different issue. Okay, because
it's
you
also
have,
a
you have
big
no,
ticket
you
item.
have no idea who's going to use it. You're funding a service and you have no idea who's going to use it.
But if
So you can't vote yes or no based on who's
Who may potentially use it. It
Who may
doesn't exist
poten-
yet.
yeah, because it could be, it may not be, who knows?
But if my daughter were to work at the school and she had a baby and needed the daycare center, I'd be more than happy to tell people she was using the daycare center.
Yeah, there's nothing. wrong
I
with
wouldn't have any problem with just saying, I have to recuse myself on an issue that relates to it because, my grandchild does that. Like, no big deal.
Yeah, and we would all do that.
Yeah, that's all I would.
Or maybe
But
we
it's not-
could use those efforts,
I would,
but
this
you
is,
wouldn't
this is
participate.
not my life. This is my family member's life. This is none,
Well,
I.
when my
I
daughter
would
was,
not.
when my daughter was working at the daycare center, I did not participate in any of the votes around the little Oriole Center. Right.
Yeah, that's how I would feel too.
Thank you for this conversation. I don't think that this changes the language here to any degree, that unless somebody disagrees with that. Does this change the highlighted language?
No,
And it's definitely much clearer than the
Yeah.
things we get from the school board.
it's good.
Yeah, this was good work.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'll make a motion that we accept this.
Second.
This policy as amended,
Yes.
okay? And
Oh.
Judy, you seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'll just bring this up. So the sentence before the highlighted sentence, right? A little bit smaller, but I can see it. However, the board member shall declare her relationship with the job applicant and will refrain from debating, discussion, or voting on a nomination or other issue. So is what we're saying is how we're interpreting this, that or other issue is defined like in the next sentence. Because I still think that language or other issue opens it up to
No,
anything.
I would disagree because that sentence begins with talking about it being a job applicant. I think that what we're talking about fits better in the center of the highlighted area where it says this would include, but is not limited to stipends and collective bargaining agreement negotiations. So I think this subject would fit into that sentence. as far as not limited to.
Yeah. I'm just picturing somebody taking that last sentence out and saying, you're not allowed to vote on
Any issue.
any issue.
Right.
No, I
related.
think it's specific to job applicant. And so it really is important to read the whole policy because it does talk about superintendent stuff. It does talk about some other specifics. Yeah, this is, and I think that a lot of our issue was in taking things out of context. I think it really is crucial to have the whole policy very clear in this.
And I guess if you want to really open, I hate to do this, right? We're about to vote on it. I said I hate to do this because we're about to vote on it and I already reviewed it, but like other issues like disciplinary matters, like all the stuff that we do all the time, right?
That
So
was-
I'll withdraw my motion. Okay, because if we want to get rid of other issues, I mean, I think we need to spell out the issues. And there are two to me. One is the hiring and the other is the pecuniary benefit. Those are basically the two.
We can't include disciplinary. Ruben, would you mind speaking to that again? We've talked about that before. So if there is a disciplinary issue, legally, you had said, when that came up before, that we cannot legally say somebody has to recuse himself. It's really up to them.
Actually, because this issue, you're clarifying something here that actually, when it comes to disciplinary, you have to be very careful. This is the issue that was looser. So we've had history in my 10 years here where board members have voted on contracts and so forth. And the School Board Association attorneys and our attorney indicated that in New Hampshire, it was vague and that it really, in the case of a person saying, I'm recusing myself for a conflict of interest, it's only a conflict of interest if that person believes it's a conflict of
Right.
interest. And if it's not, well, who are you to doubt that? And you can just go on forward and do that. And so it was perfectly legal. If you make the policy such that they can't, like if that language had been in there, that person or people would not have been able to have voted during that time frame. I mean, I agree with this. I mean, this is something that the reason why I even know that is because I was pushing this matter beforehand because I thought it was a little off. But it was what it was and you just kind of live with it. For a disciplinary situation, yeah, you don't want to be involved in a disciplinary matter with a relative because that has to do with their employment status. It's in the same lines as hiring and firing. It could be firing depending on the discipline, but it's certainly if you get into a situation where you have a teacher who you are related to and that person gets a written warning or something like that, that's creating something called just cause, which can lead to a termination. And so you want to be careful. I still want to talk about with an attorney. It's a little bit different than this, but I'd want to make sure. It seems clear to me that you wouldn't want to be.
So what do you want to do, boss? You want to take it back again?
No, I think we can add disciplinary right here. This would include, but it's not limited to stipends. That's my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And disciplinary, what's the good word?
Personal security interest in immediate specific to an individual. This would include but not be limited to stipends, collective bargaining agreement negotiations, and disciplinary proceedings.
There you go. Can you type that in?
I don't think I can, but we can add it if we just put a comma after after stipends, then get rid of that and collective bargaining agreement negotiations, comma, and disciplinary proceedings. That'll be fine.
I like it. I thought you said that legally the lawyer said that
It was for
you can't.
that we couldn't stop a person from voting on any sort of monetary issues like collective bargaining and things like that, because part of the attorney's argument was that, you know, as a board member, you are voting for the district, the system, not a specific individual. You might have a specific individual in that, but that's not the main, that's not the priority of what the conversation is. And so, and that was the thinking of one particular board member in the past who said, "Look, I don't have a conflict of interest. I'm not voting for my, let's say, you know, child or spouse or whomever. I'm voting for what I believe to be right. I'm a taxpayer."
It
So,
makes sense to me.
so it's, you know, yeah, so it was, we just lived with that. It just clears that up.
Mhm.
I don't think it's a bad thing to clear it up.
No, that's great. So Wendy, I just forwarded that updated to you and to Ruben. So do we have a motion, Charlie, again, to approve this as amended?
The amendment, would you read the amendment, please?
I will. The amendment is in the nepotism section. In the event a family member of a board member is an employee of the district or is being considered for employment, the board member shall identify his or her relation to the applicant or employee and recuse him or herself from debating, discussing, or voting on any matter in which the outcome is a personal pecuniary interest that is immediate, definite, demonstrable, and specific to the individual employee. This would include, but is not limited to, stipends, collective bargaining agreement negotiations, and disciplinary proceedings. For the purposes of this policy, a family member includes father, mother, brother, sister, wife, husband, son, daughter, or son-in-law, sister, or brother-in-law.
Yes, I just moved that.
Okay, is there a second?
I seconded.
Thank you so much, Judy. And any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? Passes 6-0-0.
Do you mind if I make a comment?
Please.
I just think that was a good discussion. There were a lot of topics, you know, and I withheld my own thoughts on a lot of things, but because it wasn't the point of the conversation, but I thought that was a really well orchestrated conversation.
I still think that we may or may not, and I didn't want to bring it up again because I think we should approve that. But what about non-employee, like disciplinary matters? I know it's certainly stuff we do every day, but is it worth defining, right? Anyways. I'll be quiet now.
So at the policy meeting, we'll keep with policies for a second. As I said, at the policy meeting, we made some changes. We set goals for our group. And I can get those up real quick. All right, so we set goals. I am asking for all of the committees to please set goals that can be posted online for this year. Our committee goals are to create a policy wherein approved policies are fully posted on the district website within 2 weeks of approval. I don't know if that'll become a policy. When I looked at policies, there was one in particular that talks about the board having governance, the administration being the ones to create the procedures for that governance. The 2 weeks of approval, that posting seems like it's a procedure to me, so I'm not sure this is something that we can mandate, or is it simply something that we're going to strongly recommend and request? So right now, let's request it and see how that does.
You could also put in policy, strive to do within, you know.
But I think we have lots of policies that have timeframes in them. That says you have to respond to a complaint in a certain
In
number
10
of
days
days.
and
You
5
have
days,
to
yeah.
handle bullying in a certain process.
These
I
are like
mean-
state laws, though.
But it doesn't make any difference whether it's a state law or not. If it, either we have as a policy or we don't. And if we have a policy that includes the ability to say, set a deadline, not how you're gonna do it, but what you're gonna do, which is what a policy should do, then I don't think that there's an issue, but
I do think it's a good idea to do a test run for a couple rounds prior to making the policy, just to make sure that once it's in policy, you know, it can be done.
Another goal is to create common language for policies brought to the board, clean up policies before bringing to the board. And I started that process with this. You saw that effect of bringing something that didn't have all the school board mumbo jumbo and legal stuff, which is important. Like, it's good to know those. The other piece of that is, instead of bringing you all that school board stuff, we're going to model another district and give you a summary of changes. This one, I just did the highlight because we had a big, but with your policies, we'll have a couple of sentences saying these are the specific changes that you should be looking for in this.
I think in why too, right? If applicable, like some of the
Exactly.
stuff that's gonna be coming down, that's like, because of a change in RSA, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
We need to change this, here are the changes.
Yeah, last year, May 15th was when we received the spring policy updates. That's probably going to be our biggest drive. So the next meeting could have a whole bunch of things brought to you. Another thing is we're going to start working on the G policies. We found that there were a lot of Gs that weren't, those are dealing with personnel, and there were a lot that weren't updated, and so we're going to work on that. And again, the spring and fall, New Hampshire School Board Association. And so those are our goals. Again, I would love to see you guys bring your goals to us when we have our meetings, to just say, this is what you guys are working on when you bring your policy things, okay? Bring your goals so we can just have that, and hopefully that could be posted in the system. Discussion items, there's one that I know of. So the first one is something Charlie had mentioned. Could we have any presentations available? And I have to say after the meeting, most likely before the meeting might not be possible in some cases, but to have them posted on the website with the minutes, and so that we can, instead of having a 2-hour video to kind of get the pieces, to have that as well as showing the presentations would be lovely. Including any student representative presentations would be great if we could have access to those online as well. So
Do you mean the presentations themselves, such as like the PowerPoint or something like that? Or do you
Like the
mean-
Abbey group came in tonight, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and that one's on there, but, or do you mean, a video of that presentation, but not the rest of the meeting? If you know what I mean? Because some presentations have voice, right? So you're talking, you're having questions and answer as part of the presentation. So are you talking about just a hard copy? Or are you talking about someone edits the film and grabs just that one and puts it up there?
yeah, I would, hang on, I would definitely say the hard copy, because we have the video.
the
But go
problem
ahead,
is
Charlie.
you go to the minutes and the minutes reference presentations that you can't see unless you go to the video.
Yeah.
And then you gotta watch your way through the video, and you can't reproduce anything that's in the video. So if the slides that were used in the presentation are just available as attachments to the minutes, you know, you can read the minutes, look at the slides, and if you have questions, go on from there.
Okay. Like the student report.
The student report, the Abbey group would be great to have that up to see that.
Well, that one we hear, right?
Right,
So-
so things like that, when you do a superintendent's report.
Mhm.
And the reason I would like it after is because, like, when you do a superintendent's report, you're showing us these little brief blips that you explain.
Mhm.
So it would really only be useful to have it where you have the video to be able to say, oh, that's what this is for.
I'm happy if it's just attached to the minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So thank you. All right, any further discussion items? Cool. Let's do public comments then, please. This is our second session of public comments. And if you are a Jaffrey Ridge resident, you're welcome to chime in. No takers. All right. Board matters. Yes, Sharon?
I have talked to the interim town administrator. And I'm ready to move forward to try to get the MOA with Ringe on the selectmen's agenda. We have agreed that one of the eliminations from the document is the background information. Neither one of us felt that that was absolutely necessary. Terms of agreement was what was focused on. So I'll start with her and then try to get it on the agenda. We did have a discussion about insurance. Since Primex, she called Primex and Primex said that as long as they're both insured by Primex, it doesn't seem to be that there's any issue with, rec center students, rec center kids using facilities. And as far as insurance coverage is concerned. So, but the interim TA said that the language relative to insurance and stuff is part of the contract, and she viewed it as a contract, and so we're going to move forward in that direction. I asked if anybody had anything in there that absolutely had to be in there. I didn't get any responses from anybody, so I'm going to just move it forward and see what we can get the selectmen to accept.
Thank you for
Thank
presenting
you,
that.
Charlie.
Any other discussion items? Okay. All right, board members. All right, I would like to take a look, next meeting. I just want to, keep an eye on the kind of agenda settings that we put in and talk about those for a second. So let me just see. Okay, so I'm opening up the school board meeting calendar. Any chance I could grab that real quick? Smooth transitions here. Ah. Okay, so for our next meeting, we put on our agenda education and finance discussion. Where do we stand and how do we keep our learning structure strong? I would like to invite the board to brainstorm a little bit. Is there anything specific that we would like to have Ruben focus on for that meeting? So I not mean that Ruben needs to take the stand for the whole thing. Maybe there's somebody else that we want to get information from, but let's start this discussion about what would be helpful on this for direction, okay? Let me start this question a little easier. If the education committee, as we used to have it, met, what do you think they would be talking about right now? What would you want to hear about?
David would set the agenda. Typically what we have is report outs on different programs and report outs from different schools. And focusing on curriculum, focusing on testing and results, performance, and how the implementation of the newer programs that we're funding are doing. So we funded a major program for literacy, and there has been some results in terms of aims, web testing and so forth, that may be of interest. I don't know. But I would say that David and Ruben are probably the best people to work on an agenda that has benefit to the board, because they do a very good job.
I thought the Abbey Group's presentation was really helpful, getting a kind of a year in review. And it sounds like that's a similar thing to what you're looking at. So if we could have, I would agree. I think that this is perfect timing to kind of see where, what initiatives have started and progress. And is that?
Will we have the results of any of the testing that's happening now?
New Hampshire SAS testing, the state assessments start next Monday.
We wouldn't get that.
Well, not official ones. We do find out very quickly how they do, but we're not, the state asked us not to talk about things until the embargoed data has been finalized. Yeah, which is usually summer. Yeah.
All right.
We'll have an idea with certain groups.
Well, I think in terms of efficiency, we should have that conversation once and when we have the,
When you have the data.
yeah.
And I think we put that down for the July 15th. Testing what we do for testing, and probably we'll get some results back at that point for effectiveness. Do we want any finance discussion at that meeting? Is there anything that we want to have prepared for that?
That's about the only thing. I'm not sure that we're there.
We will bring the increases for JRAO and exempt employees for approval.
Say, maybe a 30-minute presentation. Does that sound reasonable to ask for the education portion? I want to give the people presenting a time frame.
Sounds good.
Again, the Abbey group, I thought did that perfectly. Like that was to the point, succinct. I don't,
Okay, but I would, for this time around, yeah, but I would try to remind people that if you're gonna look at a school, maybe once a quarter or twice a year, they're gonna have a lot to say in terms of what the programs are working on, what the results of those programs are, what's working, what's not working, how their testing is going. I mean, there's a lot of detail there. And so I would see you setting aside a large chunk of time, an hour or so. Once a month.
I was hoping 30 minutes because we are doing it once a month. So
30
we've
minutes
set
for
our
one
second,
school?
our second meeting of each month is going to be focused on education.
Oh, different school age.
What I heard was you said a 30-minute presentation, so it could be an hour
Yeah, definitely.
with conversation afterwards and so forth.
Yeah,
But,
could be.
you know, and I think that with that kind of trims, with that time frame trims what the focus is. The district over the past 7 years, at least, has really focused on making sure that there's been a lot of education and explanation of depth and terminology for the board, so the board can interact with a lot of difficult language and content. It was one when Charlie and John talked to the group from NEASC. They had never in their time ever talked to the group who had been on, led 40 visits, had never talked to a set of board members who actually knew what was going on, used the proper terminology, and knew intricate details of what programs or practices were being done. So that's as a result of a lot of, we take a lot of time, but we might not be able to get as in depth as my point within 30 minutes. That may be okay, by the way.
It is if we do it every month.
Yeah.
And that's, that was the goal of bringing it to the full board and the full community. So, if we do this regularly, we know exactly what we're asking, so it's not this general input of everything, like we're asking for this, so.
So go back to what you said, half hour, because with this many people asking questions, first time around with nomenclature, then I think Ruben's absolutely right.
I would ask watching out for acronyms, so we can get lost in those. Well, thank you.
And I just want to, out of respect for our presenters, just like with the Abbey group, that presenters should go first or very high up on the agenda. And not only out of respect for our presenters, but also because that's when our community is more likely to be tuned in.
Good point.
Shall we put it right after the student report? So instead,
Yeah.
or in place of, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
the superintendent's report, this is what this becomes. Good. All right, thank you guys for working with me on this. I hope that this system works. I'd like to be very intentional about making sure we have focus every month on this. And so if there's no further board matters, we will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to go into public.
No, we're not doing non-public. It's a non-meeting.
Sorry,
You're good.
shame on me.
No, no shame. No shame. No, we're gonna enter into a non-meeting, but we do need to adjourn first.
Okay,
Motion to adjourn, Charlie?
yes, please.
Yes. You have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Judy. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Thank you so much. 600.